Hello and welcome to another video on the JJ Think Tank. I have returned after a year of not recording anything, but I am now at a stage in my life where I think I'll be able to create more videos for you and to share my views on various matters. So the first topic that I want to discuss in the year 2026 concerns the English. So the title of my article on Medium I named A Reflection on All Things English, and I based this article on my own experiences living in England, being born in England, and on these two books that I read regarding the English. One by Jeremy Paxman, hope you can see it, and this one by a Polish author, Stanisław Cat-Mackiewicz. So this one is more political in content, whereas this one covers the cultural aspect. I think it is relevant to talk about this issue because obviously we are now living in a time of massive political change. I think everyone can feel this. The tectonic plates are shifting. New alliances are being formed. New geopolitical blocks are emerging. And because of this, we can see, at least from my perspective, a lot of hate towards the English and towards the British Empire and the legacy of the British Empire. Now, of course, to some degree this hate is perhaps justified, depending on where you're from. I understand the criticism and the negative attitude towards the British Empire and the English as a people. The English are a specific nation, a specific people with their own specific character. But I believe it's time to bring a more balanced view to this topic, to this matter. Yes, and yes, I'll begin with my thoughts. So I began my article with this quote by Paxman, which reads, "The English at least have the saving grace of being able to laugh at themselves, which must be based upon a profound self-assurance." Sorry, I'm just adjusting my microphone here. I thought about this sentence here, this opinion, and I think yes, there is some truth to it. The British, the English have a specific sense of humour. They're able to laugh at themselves. They have a thing that's called banter, and I guess this kind of reflects what Paxman has said here. Well, moving on anyway. I think it's best to start with what I mentioned previously, so the British Empire. So the legacy of the British Empire, the main legacy, is the English language. So across the world, the English language is being used, and it's the main international language. It's the lingua franca of the world, and therefore, for those who perhaps are more biased against the English, against the British Empire, are more negative in their attitude, have to admit that they are marinating themselves in the Anglosphere, in the English world. Because they themselves, in their criticism, are using the English language. And they are using products, in some degree, of the English and the British Empire, yes? So, this MacBook, for instance, yes? Of course, I know the production of the MacBook is really a multinational venture, because you have the factories in China. But the design, the idea, came out of the US, right? Many, many other examples, yes? So, even though all of these people are not ethnically English, in some sense, subconsciously they are culturally English or British, because they use the language and they use the fruits of the civilization, the culture and the empire. But if we are to think a little bit more about who the English are, at least in my experience, I found out that this idea of the English was never really explained to me as I was growing up. It was kind of as if, taken for granted, or because, as the quote suggests, because the English are so self-assured, they don't really feel the need or the desire to define themselves, yes? But now this is changing slightly, because the British realise that their empire is gone, and that the UK is now being eroded from within, culturally and ethnically. There are many movements that are trying to rediscover this English identity, to really specify exactly what is British culture, what it means to be English, why the English, in their view, are great people, and so forth. So it's a strange situation. Yes, not a paradox, but it's a strange situation. Yes, and I think this book by Paxman was great, because I think it goes a great way into really defining who the English are. So let's try to unpack this now. So yes, as I said, as I wrote it down here, as Paxman notes in his book, now that the British Empire is gone and the UK is decreasing in power, these questions are surfacing again, yes, regarding identity. So before we return to Cat-M's book, I want to scroll down and reach the section where I talk about Paxman's interpretation. So if you, perhaps many of my viewers don't even know who Paxman is. So Jeremy Paxman was a rather well-known television presenter. He mainly worked for the BBC. He presented Newsnight for many, many years. He was the host of University Challenge as well, and I'm sure other shows. And he really had this specific personality, quite interrogative, and perhaps for his guests a bit frightening, because he was quite a dominant figure. And I think he's a good person to really wake up the English a little bit. So let's dive a bit more deeply into the English identity. So, as I mentioned before, Paxman explains that this undefined idea of what it means to be English is due to the fact that the English were very much caught up in the political identity of Britain, yes, and its empire. So they had to make adjustments, they had to accommodate various ethnicities, and ethnicities even found on the main land of the UK, yes, so the Welsh, the Irish, the Scottish, all of these identities, and then of course we have the identities abroad, so for instance the Indian colonies and so forth. All of these were kind of mixed up. The Irish, I mentioned the Irish, but yes, the Irish as well, the Africans, the blacks. So all this created a mishmash where the English had to, in some way, give up their identity. Yes. So describing the English personality, we can say that in some respects it can be a bit annoying. Yes, many people do find it annoying. Of course, not all English people are like this, but I've met many who were like this. They have this air of superiority, slight snobbishness, hypocrisy is quite common. You can find quite a lot of hypocrisy in the English and their views. They're quite coarse and they're averse to ideas, which is kind of reflected in their philosophy, right? So we have the continental philosophy of Europe, which is, in my view, much more interesting. It's the real philosophy. I think so anyway. It's deeper. It covers more aspects of reality. Links more dots, whereas the English or the Anglosphere or Anglo style of philosophy, it's very much pragmatic. It's really based on the analysis of language and sentence structure to discover meaning and logical laws, we could say. So there is definitely some link there. But, of course, as I mentioned this at the beginning, I don't want to be totally negative or really positive. Yes, I want to present both sides of the English. Like any ethnicity or nation, every nation has their own specific character, their own weaknesses and their strengths, right? But returning now, the English, because of their particular historical insularity, developed a specific sense of wisdom and practicality. This is definitely linked to their geography, definitely, because for millennia, for thousands of years, the English were obviously separated from Europe by the English Channel, and they still are to this day. And because of this, there really wasn't much of a process of mixture going on. And by mixture, I mean new arrivals, new immigrants coming in. There really was a stable identity over so many thousands of years. Yes. Well, not thousands, for 1,000 years, yes. Pretty much. And of course this created a set identity, yes, a very specific ethnic genetic identity, and because of that, cultural identity. So what can we say is the true England, if anything, of what is left? So if we think about the geographical aspect, it's well the urban countryside aspect. It's definitely the sleepy countryside. This is really what's left of the old England, because if you look at all the main cities, for example Birmingham, Manchester, London, Leicester, they've all lost their identity, right? But all the surrounding areas, they're still very much English. So we've got the Cotswolds, then further into Cornwall, Devon, Exeter, all the southeast, right? Kent, and then some part of the north, I guess, Liverpool and York, right? This is where we should be focusing on to find out more about the English. But this is Paxman's view that we can't, the English shouldn't just base their identity now on the countryside because of political reaction, right? Due to their aversion to the liberal, multicultural cities popping up. They somehow, in Paxman's view, have to accommodate both identities. So the multicultural tolerant identity and the traditional identity of the countryside. Regarding identity, so keeping with this topic, so Paxman highlights England and its Protestant identity. And this Protestantism was the source of the rise of individualism in England, and the idea of liberty, private property rights, the supremacy of the law over any rash despot, yes, or tyrant. And so we have to remember that this idea of liberty that we all cherish and that we to some extent still have came from England, I would say. Many would argue perhaps it came from elsewhere. I don't know. Perhaps that's true, but you can definitely trace a lot of the how can I put this? A lot of the groundwork for the current idea, the current sense of liberty around the world to England, yes, and their historical process. So I did say that England had a set identity and a set genetic structure and ethnic structure for 1,000 years. But even then, if we dive a little bit deeper, we dig a little bit more, we find that they are not multicultural in the current sense, but they are a mixture of sorry, my microphone here keeps on moving, of various tribes. So we have Briton, Scot, Roman, Saxon, Flander, Huguenot, Jute, Dane, Celtic, Norman, Jewish a little bit. So all of this mixed together, right? But the main three sources we could say are Germanic, Celtic, and Anglo. Right? By Anglo, we include kind of these tribes like Norman, Saxon, yes, Flanders. I guess Flanders was from Europe, Belgium, right? But you can see, right? The that the tribes were sourced from the northern European area, yes, which is currently Belgium, Denmark, Germany, some parts of France, and then of course the islands of the UK and England itself. Yes. So even though I'm saying this, we can't then proclaim that, you know, the scale of immigration now is okay. Yes, oh, England was always multicultural. Yes, we England should bring all these immigrants from everywhere. No, come on. Too many immigrants arrived in such a short time that it simply wasn't possible to integrate all of them, and that's why we see so much chaos. We see so much chaos. So much chaos now in the UK. Subscribe to the JJ Think Tank right now. Oh yes. So I want to expand on my thought about the Protestant identity. So I don't think I said enough about this. So this is a quote by Paxman in the book. I thought it was quite illuminating. So it is in the fight with church and state, first to get access to the Bible in their own language, and then to use the scriptures to establish their own relationships with another and with authority, that we see the spirit of English individualism at work. It is one of the reasons that it has never been necessary for an Englishman or Englishwoman to submerge their identity within the state. And it is one of the reasons that the country has produced so many eccentrics. There's definitely some truth to that. Other peoples and cultures are more collectivist in nature. They see the state as a good force. Other peoples and cultures are of the opposite view. They view the state as threatening and something that needs to be curbed. I'm more on the English side here with regards to the state. The state is, well, it tends to become tyrannical. Yes. A few more thoughts regarding English culture before I move on to the Polish political perspective. Is what the new English identity will be. Yeah, so we alluded to this earlier when Paxman said that the new identity needs to be a mixture of the traditional countryside landscape, the landscape of it, and the people and the culture, with the multicultural city. Yes. So I think some form of fusion has to occur. And I wouldn't be surprised if after 10 or 20 years this does occur to some degree, because a lot of the values so prevalent and shared by all that are unconscious, such as common sense, individuality, liberty, and kind of the bourgeoisie lifestyle based on games like cricket, football, tennis. What other games do we have? Golf, boxing. These games, they're loved by all. It doesn't matter where you're from, right? They are kind of like a binding force. But also, after a while, where even a person from a place as distant as Somalia, yes, a Somalian British man, because he has been able to settle in England and gain his little paradise of having a business or his own little house or flat and his bit of liberty. By nature, people want to protect this, right? They'd rather live in peace than go to war. So I think England, it shouldn't be so worried about the future. Of course, I understand many English people want to stop immigration because it's gone too far. But some form of integration will take place. Perhaps it will be balkanized as well, because of obviously the Muslim community and Islam. But I wouldn't say there will be mass chaos. I think that's going a bit too far. But now returning to Cat-Mackiewicz, yes, and using his book, I want to analyse how the British in the past, here I'm talking more about the establishment, not about the British people, the establishment, yes, the political establishment, how they are very effective in politics and in foreign policy. So, Cat M, I'll abbreviate his name, goes into the intricacies of the English approach to politics, comparing it to the naive, childlike, romantic approach of Poland in the 20th century and previously, utilising various historical events and case studies to explore these differences. So yes, it's clear that the British approach, it's pragmatic, calculating and self-interested. It's cold, but this is how politics is done. Politics is a dirty business. In politics, there are no friends, no enemies, there are just interests, right? When you operate on the level of the state, you only take into account economic factors, really. Morality, ethics, is not the domain of politics. And this is what Polish politicians get mixed up about, really. So yes, the British approach is pragmatic, calculating and self-interested, which is why the country was so successful and possibly might still be in this domain. So as we know, Britain's supremacy was based on the strategy of divide and rule, applied on the European continent, but it was also buttressed by her sea power and financial dominance. So, looking back at history, we can see a few common strategies that were repeatedly applied by the British state. So, namely, weakening Catholic France. France, really, when we look at history, now it's perhaps not so evident. But the British and the French, they really hate each other. The English and the French, yes, they do hate each other. Maybe this will arise again. I don't know. We'll see. Yes, weakening France, Poland, but also antagonizing Germany and Russia. And the second rule, entering a war only when a coalition was formed. So the English were smart in that way. They fought when it was necessary and when they knew they had a chance of victory, as opposed to Polish and Poland always succumbing to uprisings, stupid uprisings that were never going to be successful. So this is the difference, right? So we can boil all these strategies down to a single rule of maintaining a balance of power, with Britain being only one of a couple of other players with cards to play. And I guess that's all regarding the political domain. I already talked about the personality and the character of English, right? I don't want to talk more about this because, yes, I think time is up now. I hope you enjoyed my video and my discussion of the English. Perhaps now you have, if you are anti-English, perhaps you have changed your mind a little bit. If you are pro-English, you understand more what the English identity actually is. Because as I said at the beginning, because England was caught up in the empire, the English never really had to define themselves, right? So yes, I hope you liked the video. Please like and subscribe if you did enjoy it, and see you on the next one.